and welcome to AEF TV in association with Engerati. And we're going to talk about something a little bit different, but I think highly relevant to the conversation here around power development in Africa. And we're joined now by Tereneh, Idia'Dega, Mosley. And first off, welcome. And thanks for taking the time out to speak with us. I know you're going to do a talk. It's later on in the conference. But tell us a little bit. Set the scene for us so that our viewers understand where we're going to go later on. You're talking about design and sustainability, and it just if you could, in your own words, like they say when when you used to go to school, just tell us a little bit about what you're doing here.
Well, I am a designer. I'm actually a fashion designer, but I work with Maasai women in Kenya in a place called Idia'Dega. And one of the things that we do is look at how you incorporate indigenous design, traditional design, arts and crafts into contemporary design. And so what I noticed is that a lot of the ideas about where innovation, where new technology, how things work and what is new and what's 21st century tend to come from the West and the North. And I started thinking about, well, globalization means the world isn't flat, the world is round. And so where is this circular conversation about how things are made, who makes them, who designs them, who decides what design is part of the 21st century solutions. And so what I really thinking about is how all of that tradition, all of that indigenous knowledge can be brought into the 21st century to create, in this case, renewable energy products, both for a local economy, but also hopefully for a global economy as well.
Because it's one of those things that design identifies, it creates identity, and identity influences design. So there's a little circle there. And increasingly, when you're talking about renewables, the renewable is particularly solar. We'll talk about wind in a second. It gets embedded in all sorts of places, and you're already seeing it as a part of design expression in, as you say, the Northern Hemisphere. And so is that what you're trying to translate into the African context? But let's stay with Africa for now, because I know you work elsewhere. So just talk to us a little bit about that. How important is that to acceptance and all those other radial benefits?
Well, I think it comes down to the idea of sustainability. We think about it, we talk about it in terms of sustaining nature, which is extremely important, but I also think we have to sustain each other and sustain humanity, and think about how we sustain the indigenous knowledge and traditional knowledge that got us to this point as human beings. We didn't just pop out of the earth in the 21st century. It's taken years and years for us to get to this point, and to leave that out, I think is going to be something that's going to be a detriment. The Vestas CEO and president yesterday at the opening was talking about how the blacksmiths of Denmark forged the first windmill, looking at nature and saying, well, we can harness the wind, and that's what they did. We can look at the traditional arts and crafts of the world, of Africa, in my case, working with the Maasai women, and also incorporate that into renewable energy and incorporate that into solar. And I think it's really important, because if you take away the local context, if you take away the cultural expression, the design, it's so key and so important. You could be wearing a sack, and you'd still be dressed, but you're not. You're wearing a really nice navy blue pinstripe suit and a burgundy shirt because you care about design. Everything, it shows who we are individually. It shows our place in the world, where we aspire to be, and what our present and future is, and what our history is. And if we take that context out of a local community and take them out of the equation and say, this is innovative, this is important, this is 21st century, this is an answer, and it looks like this because we decided how it's going to look, as opposed to, why don't we have a conversation about, okay, if it's solar panels, but what else can be a part of that? And how can you be a part of your own solution? And how can you own that? So in addition to the idea of designing renewable energy, we're also thinking about designing power and what that means, not only in terms of providing power and energy, but also making sure that the power is coming from the local community as well.
Because you want to make it like almost like a blended transition. I mean, you don't want to recreate the brutalist movement, do you? You know, where,
not a favorite design genre of mine. Trying to avoid that.
There's probably only one example where it's actually ever worked. You know, but do you feel that if we're not careful, things could jar in that way? You know, I mentioned the brutalist movement for a reason,
yes.
because you know, things did jar,
yes.
and it became a little bit like you completely love it or hate it, mostly hate it, you know, occasionally love it, and you know, like I said, renewable energy is so visible.
Yes.
You know, the old energy was invisible because the power plant was like 500 miles away. You didn't really see it.
Yes.
It wasn't part of the DNA. So are we actually talking about something completely new that is actually another output of this wave? Because there's so much talk in the world about, you know, and let's not get too political here, but you know, jobs are being taken away from the traditional power plants, etc. But this industry has much more of an ability to impact and engage communities, doesn't it?
It does, it does. And I think that that's what's so amazing about it, because it's not a power plant, it's not something separate. It can really be a part of a whole community, really building and working together and developing something that only works and provides energy and power, but also empowers the local community and gives them a sense, not only in this case, but the ripple effect of, actually I do have a say in how things are made and how things are built, especially for my benefit, especially thinking about how it's going to impact the community. And not only on a local area, but also what can we do as a collaboration, because I collaborate with Maasai women, to actually have impact on a global scale. So provide products that are going to help their community and help the women and help their families, but also is there something that can be said about a Maasai co-designed renewable energy product that goes out to the global market, so that your customer isn't just the woman that lives in the next Banda, but your customer is someone in London or someone in New York. And I think that's ultimately the idea of globalization for good, is that we're all really a part of that economy, we're all part of that innovation.
So let's bring your project to life a little bit for people who are watching this this interview. Are you saying that actually, you know, the fact that renewable energy, solar, wind turbines, etc., that are going to get made, they're going to get made anywhere. The access to how you make that technology is another thing, but you can create that design overlay over the top of it so that you have. So what are you selling then? Are you selling art? Are you selling design? Or are you selling this functional thing at the bottom of it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit like Steve Jobs, right? Yeah, it's like, well, I know it's a music player,
right,
but actually it's great design, great art, and so on. And that's why I can charge you $200 more than anybody else. Is it kind of like that?
Is it design, form over function? It really is a blending of both. So the idea is to create products that people can actually use. I know in the US where I live, for example, there's what I call kind of a sustainability continuum. There's people who recycle their plastic bottles and their glasses. They would like to have renewable energy. They don't want to have solar panels on their roof. They don't have access to the roof. So there's all these different barriers to entry. And so what we like to do is we actually provide products that could help people along that process. So maybe a bag that can help charge your phone and can help charge your tablet and laptop. That same bag could be used in a Maasai village to help the communities charge the same things.
Right.
So from anything from that to the larger scale, community-wide, Banda, house, apartment, different products that can help you push yourself along that sustainable continuum and push you down that path to using renewable energy more effectively than right now, because I think it feels so big. It feels so like, how do I do this? So we would like to actually introduce products that people can use on an individual basis, on a room scale, and then make it bigger.
Because people forget that actually, and I remember it was an interview 3 years ago, someone said, in an African context, when you're talking about access to power, you got to take a leap away from the developed context, because we think about access to power, we think about powering washing machines and dishwashers and stuff like that. For in an African context, access to power is a light bulb that enables you to do homework a little bit longer, enables an artist to paint a little bit longer, and things like that. And that goes back to what you're saying, is that something quite simple like that, you know, combined with the technology advances, can create a lot of benefits. But you know, bring the project to life a little bit more. I mean, do you run workshops? Do we? You know, is there a natural empathy, affinity towards design, and you know, and how do you do the education where you say, oh well, look, here's your toolkit, this is what you can do?
Well, actually, because I had started working with this Maasai community about 3 years ago, we already had a kind of eco-design context or a process where just literally put pens, papers, pencil on the table and just start drawing. But in this case, what we decided to do is actually think about not, okay, ladies, let's design renewable energy products. So they're like, I've never done that. What are you talking about? And so what we did is like we took it back a step and said, don't try to design a renewable energy product. Do a visual representation of what natural power looks like to you. And in their community, there's some river, there's lots of wind, there's sun. And so they really started drawing that, and they started drawing plants. They started drawing flowers in bloom and plants in bloom. And that became the basis for the design, looking at almost like a village-wide quilt that's solar panels on one side, hand-beaded, and quilt-like designs on the other side that pull apart, and each individual family or woman can take that part and then have light in her house. So things like that were part of just the general idea about not trying to create renewable energy products, but trying to represent power and your needs. And I think that the best design kind of works that way. It's not, you know, build a music player or build a phone. It's what's the best way to communicate? What's the best way to share art? And so that's what we tried to do, just think about how do you represent power and energy, and how would you share that with the people around you? And that's how we designed it.
And that's perfect. On that note, we leave it. I wish we had a visual, because we're talking about such
I
visual
know,
things.
and I have.
It'd be great to hold something up.
Yeah,
but
do.
maybe you can send us some images, so when we
Okay,
write this
yeah.
up, and we can put this in. But thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much for watching. And yes, AEF TV 2017.